And good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday, the 16th of September 2022. And it's a glorious day in Brisbane, though it was raining in the morning. It is clear now, partly cloudy at this point in time. It could change. At the moment, it is 18 degrees and mostly cloudy is the prediction for the day. And there is also prediction for some thunderstorms. So, spring leading on to this kind of weather, of course, we know that is what our Queensland is. Well, right now, going back to all our news. So today we'll have the daily news update, then our daily India report, and then we'll also look at what's coming up in the weekend, because this is going to be a big, huge weekend. There's so much that's happening out there. Well, right now, Prince William and Princess Kate greet crowds at Sandringham. And just look at that amazing crowd there. In a minute we will show you how long the queues have been and how long people have been waiting just to get a glimpse. So these are historic times that we are living through. So it's so good of them to come and actually say hello to people. Well, right now, let's take a look at that report where there's a kilometers long lines to see the last glimpse of Queen's coffin.
The queues just seem to be growing by the hour as people are really desperate to pay their respects.
Yeah, it sure is. It's about 6 kilometres long at the moment, snaking down the side of the Thames, all the way down past the Borough Markets now at London Bridge. Some people are getting through in about 10 hours, which is less, of course, than what was predicted. People were being warned to prepare for up to 30 hours. They're all pretty cheerful. They're sort of making friends. They're contemplating. We are now probably just 500 metres away from them actually getting into the entrance, so people are starting to quieten down a little bit and think about what might be ahead. I caught up with a couple of Australians, actually, Bev, who had been queuing for about 5 hours, Deborah and Peter Hatton. Let's have a listen.
It's very friendly. People are sharing foods and chocolates. There's a great deal of respect for the Queen. I think people are really feeling this unique moment in history.
And why did you want to come along?
Because we happen to be over at the UK at the moment, and we just felt this was something that we should do. It was the right thing to do. It was a very important moment, one that will never come again.
Yeah, Lisa, it's interesting to see how many people from different nations are queuing up for this, even though, in some instances the Queen wasn't a day-to-day presence for them. You were a correspondent there for so many years. What is your sense of how this transition is going to be for people there?
Yeah, I mean, I had met the Queen previously when I was younger. I'd been to some of the garden parties at Buckingham Palace. It's such a privilege as a reporter to be here in the Bureau, and so you got a real sense of just how widely she was loved and respected. So that transition is going to be interesting, whether people will feel the same way about King Charles, whether that is going to be something he has to earn from them in a sense. Certainly he does not have the popularity that his mother had, and I'm sure he is well aware of that.
And he needs to be given a chance because he has just taken on the job, and Queen has been there for 7 decades, and he will have a tough time trying to live up to that legacy. But I'm pretty sure, given the opportunity, he will do the right job. Well, right now, looking at those queues, let's take a look at the time-lapse photography where it says a 6-kilometer queue, and people have been asked to stand in line for 30 hours, and they're still willing to do that because this moment will never ever come back. So this is a timeless photography. As you can see, the number of people just queuing up, that's just amazing. So they're queuing up all along the side of the Thames, then up to the London Bridge, and of course, people have been in that line for yonks. And they're still managing well, as you can see. They're still going through. This is a time-lapse photography, so some amazing footage there, and it is incredible times. Well, times are so incredible, and we know that leaders from all around the world are gathering to be there, and of course our Prime Minister is heading there too.
Yeah, it sure is. It's about 6 kilometres long at the moment, snaking down the side of the Thames, all the way down past the Borough Markets now at London Bridge. Some people are getting through in about 10 hours, which is less, of course, than what was predicted. People were being warned to prepare for up to 30 hours. They're all pretty cheerful. They're sort of making friends. They're contemplating. We are now probably just 500 metres away from them actually getting into the entrance, so people are starting to quieten down a little bit and think about what might be ahead. I caught up with a couple of Australians, actually, Bev, who had been queuing for about 5 hours, Deborah and Peter Hatton. Let's have a listen.
It's very friendly. People are sharing foods and chocolates. There's a great deal of respect for the Queen. I think people are really feeling this unique moment in history.
And why did you want to come along?
Because we happen to be over at the UK at the moment, and we just felt this was something that we should do. It was the right thing to do. It was a very important moment, one that will never come again.
Yeah, Lisa, it's interesting to see how many people from different nations are queuing up for this, even though, in some instances they weren't, the Queen wasn't a day-to-day presence for them. You were a correspondent there for so many years. What is your sense of how this transition is going to be for people there?
Yes, it is going to be one of those tough questions where people, would be asking.
Not have the popularity that his mother had, and I'm sure he is well aware of that. I think that is a case, Bev, we are only going to know as the days, weeks, months go on.
And Lisa, of course, King Charles has spent a number of days going right around the UK. He is now taking a day for reflection.
Yeah, it's not a day off though, but just a day away from the public glare. He's got those famous red boxes we know the monarchs use with the cabinet documents, the state papers that they have to go through as part of their duties. He's at his private residence of Highgrove, and he'll be speaking to world leaders as well on the phone, but just having a much quieter day after the last 5 days, which has been incredibly intense. Other royal...
After intense days, it's taking a little bit slow and catching up on a lot of paperwork that needs to be done there. Well, right now, let's look at some of the local news before we go into our daily India report. Our previous Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, she says that the Republic debate can wait until after the funeral.
I always thought in Australia too it would unleash a new set of reflections about our own constitutional arrangements. But there's no rush, and I certainly endorse what the Prime Minister has said. There's time for measured discussion. It's certainly too soon for that now. I think we can have a measured, steady discussion, which will ultimately take us, I think, in the direction of a republic, but it won't be quick.
So as he rightfully mentioned, not right now, but she does endorse that move, and we will have to look at it in the coming years. Well, right now let's go to Northern Territory, where yesterday we reported on those racist comments. The racist texts that were said by
They were
the
described
officers
today
there.
by Constable Rolfe's own barrister as patently racist and abhorrent. A series of text messages downloaded from Constable Zachary Rolfe's phone, apparently an indication of the legacy inherited by the Police Commissioner.
That's 2019. I think it's now starting to give people quite an insight into the legacy that I've inherited, and goes to all of the work that we've been doing in trying to overcome some of those things and trying to make ourselves far better.
The Commissioner wasn't alone in his shock as the messages were read aloud to the coroner yesterday. Some were sent by Constable Rolfe, others sent to him, many using racial slurs and making sexist remarks.
I think that this is isolated, and that's what we are trying to make sure is the case. I think a lot of our police officers hearing that evidence yesterday would have been quite shocked by it.
For Kumanjai Walker's family, who have followed every moment of the coronial inquest, the evidence was horrific. It's woeful that amongst the authors of some of those text messages are high-ranking officers like a sergeant. This can no longer be an argument about a few rotten eggs. At some point, we need to inspect the chicken creating those eggs. Constable Zachary Rolfe was acquitted in March of all charges related to the shooting death of Kumanjai Walker. Lawyers for the Northern Territory Police Force told the coroner these messages should not be indicative of the entire police force. As the inquest continued hearing evidence today, both Anne Jolly and Lanyon Smith told the coroner about the differences in policing remote communities to urban centres. Both denied hearing racial slurs used in their workplace. Senior Constable Lanyon Smith recounted for the coroner the moment he attempted to arrest Kumanjai Walker when he was confronted with an axe days before Mr Walker was ultimately shot. He'll continue giving evidence when the inquest resumes on Monday. Melissa McKay, ABC News.
In December 2019, Sam Ramachi watched on as his retirement nest egg went up in flames in the Blue Mountains. He blames the RFS.
I just think if they hadn't started the back burning, we wouldn't have lost the properties.
Up to 20 structures were destroyed after the weather changed and fire crews lost control of the Mount Wilson backburn. It was designed to contain the Gospers Mountain mega blaze. Nearly 3 years on, the RFS members responsible for that decision met with those who suffered its consequences. Locals wanted an apology.
What I wanted to see happen in this meeting was the RFS command to acknowledge that the Mount Wilson backburn was a mistake.
Our confidence was shaken by the people from Sydney or from further down the mountain who weren't on the ground, who were making decisions that were directly impacting us.
TV cameras weren't allowed inside this meeting, where emotional residents asked the RFS why the backburn was lit and why they weren't informed. Despite their questions, the RFS was unwilling to apologise for this specific incident.
So I'm sorry for the pain and anguish that has been suffered by the people of here and everywhere else as a result of the fires.
The Mount Wilson backburn will be examined at the Bushfire Coronial Inquiry next week. Harriet Tatum, ABC News.
Of course, the inquiry will take place and the results will be made public. It is a hard act for the firefighters as well, so we need to give they need to be planned, there needs to be a plan, but of course nature always takes its own course as well. Prepare as much as you can, but there are things sometimes beyond your control or beyond anyone's control for that matter. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna in India meets Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Indian Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to discuss the Indo-Pacific issues and the Ukraine crisis.
The French Foreign Minister was in New Delhi on a two-day visit on September 14th and called on Prime Minister Modi and discussed the Ukraine. Since Russian President Vladimir Putin has regular telephone conversations with French President Emmanuel Macron and PM Modi, the two sides decided to use their good offices to bring the war to an end by pushing for a diplomatic solution. The visiting French Foreign Minister conveyed President Macron's message to offer a no-limit partnership to India with full cooperation in the Indo-Pacific and a comprehensive partnership in defence and security relations. India and France have decided to hold separate trilateral ministerial meetings with Australia and the United Arab Emirates in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA session in the coming week as part of their cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. While the French minister's focus was on cementing diplomatic and political ties with India, she made it clear that France is not looking for defence contracts but defence partnerships with India, with 100% transfer of technology, joint ventures to manufacture full-spectrum hardware and export to other countries. France has already offered joint development and manufacture of Safran aircraft engines and AIP submarines and is also willing to help India with the construction of nuclear-powered conventionally armed submarines. She also met her Indian counterpart Dr. S. Jaishankar and Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. After the meeting, she said that France shared India's concerns in the Indo-Pacific where China continued to pose many challenges and where international law had been undermined. A resident power in the Indo-Pacific, France has been acting increasingly as India's gateway to Europe and has encouraged the EU to play a more important geopolitical role in the region in light of Chinese expansionism. The visiting foreign minister also discussed with her counterpart the way to mitigate adverse effects of the Ukraine war, particularly on global food and energy security. Both ministers also expressed their interest in resuming cooperation under the India-France-Australia trilateral mechanism and looked forward to the trilateral ministerial meeting to be held in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA later this month.
Indian President Draupadi Murmu will attend the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II in London on September 19th.
President Murmu will offer condolences on behalf of the Indian people. On September 14th, the External Affairs Ministry confirmed that President Murmu will be among the nearly 500 heads of state and foreign dignitaries who have been invited to attend the former British monarch's state funeral at London's Westminster Abbey. President Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have officially expressed condolences at the demise of the Queen on September 8th. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar visited the British High Commission in New Delhi on September 12th to convey India's condolences. A statement by the MEA said in the 70 years of the Queen's reign, India-UK ties had evolved, flourished and strengthened and that she played an important role in the welfare of millions of people worldwide as the head of the Commonwealth. During her three-day UK visit from September 17th to 19th, Murmu is expected to attend the lying-in state of the Queen's coffin at Westminster Hall, sign a condolence book and deliver a condolence message on behalf of the government.
US lawmakers have pledged to strengthen ties with India to tackle China's threat.
US lawmakers have pledged to work to strengthen the country's ties with India, which they said has become all the more important in view of the threat posed by China to the world. Congresswoman Elaine Goodman-Luria, in her address to the Indian American community at an event to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, said, quote, I serve on the Armed Services Committee and really understand how important that relationship is between the United States and India, end quote. She represents Virginia State's 2nd Congressional District in the House of Representatives. As many as 75 Indian American organizations have come together to observe the historic milestone of India's journey after 1947. Prominent among these organizations include US-India Relationship Council, Seva International, Ekal Vidyalaya Foundation, Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, Kopio Silicon Valley, US-India Friendship Council, and Sardar Patel Fund for Sanatan Sanskruti. Congresswoman Michelle Yunjo-Steele said, quote, the only thing we really have to know is China is a big threat. Very selfishly, they want to spread out and expand all full world. They're not going to be happy until the takeover. So this is a time to strengthen the India-US relationship, end quote. Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, one of the 4 Indian Americans in the US Congress, in his address said India's greatest export is Indian Americans. He said, quote, we know all about India from where it started to where it is now. We know it is the fastest growing major economy in the world. It's one of the largest economies in the world. We know about its great technological developments, great agriculture and inventions. We know about so much progress, but let me tell you about its greatest export. Its greatest export is none other than you, Indian Americans. End quote.
The grand old Indian National Congress Party suffered another setback as 8 MLAs of Congress in Goa joined the BJP.
After resignations at the national level, the Congress party was hit with another jolt. This time in the state of Goa, as 8 of its MLAs joined the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party on September 14th. Michael Lobo, an MLA who quit the Congress and joined BJP, said, quote, "We have joined to strengthen Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji," end quote. In the 40-member Goa Assembly, the Congress previously had 11 legislators and the BJP had 20. In July 2019, 10 Congress MLAs had switched over to the BJP. Sources said a Congress legislature meeting took place earlier in the day where 8 out of the total 11 Congress MLAs passed a resolution to merge the Goa Congress Party into the BJP. The legislators who have joined BJP are Digambar Kamat, Michael Lobo, Delilah Lobo, Rajesh Faldesai, Kedar Nayak, Sankalp Amonkar, Alexo Sequeira and Rodolfo Fernandez. There were reports in July that top leaders Digambar Kamat and Michael Lobo were planning to join the BJP. Congress then requested that Kamat and Lobo be disqualified under the anti-defection law.
Tata, one of India's oldest and biggest business conglomerates, is contemplating merging its investment and thereby merging two major Indian carriers it owns, Vistara and Air India.
Ever since the Tata Group acquired Air India, there has been talk of a possible merger of Air India and Vistara, a joint venture between Tata Sons Singapore Airlines, which carried 1.01 million passengers and became the second largest airline by market share in July. According to reports, all possibilities are being discussed. Since Vistara is a joint venture, the two stakeholders will have to discuss a roadmap for the future. Whether it's going to be a merger or they will have two separate airlines are all options that are still on the table. According to recent reports, Air India, Air India Express and Air Asia India will soon start working from the same office. Vistara too shifted to a new office in 2021. Currently, Vistara operates 250 flights every day across its international and domestic network, of which the majority of the flights are in the domestic sector. In winter, it will increase flights from the current 250 flights per day to around 280 flights in stages. Vistara has 55 aircraft as of date, which includes 43 A320s, 2 B787 and 5 each A321s and B737s.
India is moving ahead fast towards beginning human space mission first trial by end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024.
Indian Minister of State for Science and Technology Jitendra Singh has said that the first trial for India's maiden human space mission Gaganyaan will be done by the end of 2023 or at the beginning of 2024. He said the first test flight will be followed by sending a female-looking humanoid robot, Vyom Mitra, to ensure that the final flight of Gaganyaan is flawless. Singh said on the basis of these two missions, our astronauts will go on the third mission. With the launch of Gaganyaan, India will become the fourth nation in the world to launch a human space flight mission after the US, Russia and China.
The makers of the film Dhooka Round D Corner have released a romantic track titled Tu Ban Ke Hawa. Here's the track that the Bollywood producer said ignites the magic of first love.
Happy birthday!
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to leave there. Let's right now, we will take a look at what is happening locally this weekend. As we know, there's so many functions and events that are going to take place in this weekend. Of course, we know the big one is Mosaic. So Mosaic will be happening at the Roma Street Parklands, but not where Indian Air Fair happens, on the bottom side where it is the celebration lawn. Yes, in that area is where it will be taking place. So it will be a good opportunity for everyone to bring the family along and come and have a look at all the things that is happening right there. And it will be wonderful event. It features a citizenship ceremony, and of course the official opening would be around midday. So it's going to be a good day out if you're planning to come that way. Right now, let's take a look at some of the functions and events that would be taking place. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. Don't forget that today we have a very special report on what is going to happen with the Olympic announcement, that now it's 1 year past that announcement. So after 1 year, what is looking at the property market? So we'll be discussing all of those with ST, who will be here in the studios with us to talk about that. So, stay tuned for that segment as well. So until that segment, it's goodbye from us.